So for the next 30 minutes that we have here in class, I'm not going to go through the rest of the PowerPoint. I will have a portion of some of the other lectures that finish this up. But truly, we've covered most all of this. The piece that I would rather do is just spend time working on problem after problem after problem, okay? And I could jump right into the homework, but I'm wondering if that would just be too overwhelming for you. Let's just see, problem 1. Actually, let's go to problem E3A, okay? You cannot get enough exercise doing these, and I will have the solutions for you online, and I want to encourage you to go over these on your own because you have the homework. You've got the work papers, you've got the solutions, and you can go over them and see where you're off. E3A basically lists complete the table using X's to indicate each account's classification and normal balance. So for example, supplies is what? Asset. So you're going to X the asset box. And is it a normal balance of a debit or a credit? Debit. So you'll, over there where it says normal balance, debit, you'll X that, okay? Utilities expense. What is it? Expense. And is the normal balance a debit or a credit? Perfect. Debit. What? Utilities expense is an expense. That's okay. Accounts receivable is asset. And it has a normal debit balance. Guys, I think it's very helpful for you to go through this problem. I will have the solutions online, so you go through them and then you make sure you've got the right answers here. You will see this on the quiz, which you're going to all do together. But this is a great way for you to know you've got the right answers. It's making sense to you, okay? Does it make sense, guys? Okay. The next thing let me look at here is again, I just can't say enough about encouraging you guys to go over this. I am going to start on problem 1A, okay? So this is the first part of your homework. We'll get as much of this, problem 1, 2, I just know I'm not going to get them all today. But let's start with problem 1A, okay? So if you go to your little cute work papers and problem 1. Does this help to have these work papers, guys? Okay, then I'll keep doing them. And those of you who want to take pictures of them and put them in the Dropbox, that's fine with me. Let's look at problem 1. P1. Highland Design Company creates radio and television advertising for local businesses in the Twin Cities. The following alphabetical list shows Highland's design account balances as of January 31st, 2014. Insert the account title at the top of its corresponding T account and enter the dollar amount as a normal balance in the account. Determine the balance of equipment and then show that the accounting equation is in balance. So the you have the cash. They're already listed for you here. So what I'd like you to do is show under assets, the cash shows 18,400. What are we going to do with that 18,400? Are we going to show it as a debit balance or a credit balance? Yes. So under cash of how do I turn it? You rock. Yay. So under cash, you should have a debit of 18,400. Got it? Next, under accounts receivable, what should it be? Debit of 78,000. We don't know our equipment yet, do we? It's a question mark. Not quite. Now, what else do we have, guys? Our accounts payable should be what? A liability. It should be 6420 as a credit, right? Fred, right?
Yes.
Loans payable, 10,000. Is that a debit or credit? Credit. Unearned revenue, that is 18,000. Are we going to have a debit or a credit? Unearned revenue. What we can tell what it is by the section it's in. It's a liability. Liabilities have a normal credit balance. Remember, liabilities, normal credit balance. Then we've got something called Armada Capital. That's 74,000. What will it be? Owner's equity. Capital has a normal credit balance, and because it increases the equity. Then we've got the next section, withdrawals. Withdrawals decrease our owner's equity, don't they? And by decreasing it, we debit it. So withdrawals have a normal debit balance. Then we've got some revenues. Do we? Design revenue, 210,000. Revenues do what to our owner's equity or capital account? Increase it. If they increase it, what would it be? A credit. Revenues have a normal credit balance. Then expenses, they decrease our capital account. So expenses have a normal debit balance. So the goal here is to take those various figures and fill them in to this worksheet. And then from there, you don't know equipment, so don't pretend you see that it's 49,180. But what you're going to want to do is you're going to total all of your liabilities. You're going to total your owner's equity. So take a moment, and I've got the answers up here. Take a moment and see if you can make some sense out of this, okay? Is that cool, guys? Problem 2, I think I'm going to let you handle that on your own, and I'll tell you why. It gives you various accounts, and then it will say, George Warehouse Sweeps completed these transactions. And it wants to know which accounts you would debit or which ones you would credit. So for example, let's take D. Purchased supplies on credit. So let's just think about that. When we purchase supplies on credit, what's increasing? Supplies and accounts payable. Remember, a payable means we have to pay it back. A receivable means we're going to get it. So when we purchase supplies on credit, we're going to increase our asset, which will be a debit, and we will increase our payable, which would be a credit. How about this one? G, billed customers for services performed. When we bill a customer, what will we debit? Accounts receivable. An asset gets increased. We also need to credit something when we bill customers for work performed. Service revenues increase, and that's a credit. Excellent. Now, how about L? Paid for repairs with cash. We're going to credit cash, and we need to debit something. Look at one of those accounts. Repair expense. Exactly. When we make a cash withdrawal, what are we going to do? We need to debit something, we need to credit something. We need to credit cash, but we now need to debit something. What would we debit? R. Markuson withdrawals, number 9. Excellent. Do you guys, and guys, if you have any questions and you have, ask me. We'll get in a discussion, or I'll put it on the discussion. We can go through a lot of these also. Now, what I'd like to do is P3. I will have P4 and P5 on lectures. They're quite lengthy, and it's a great learning tool, okay? We're going to do P3 right now, if that's okay. Is that okay, guys? Yes. Are y'all ready for P3? There's just P4 and P5, there's no way we'll get it done in 20 minutes. So you'll have lectures on that. Jennifer Lopez opened a school for administrative skills called Lopez Office Training and completed the following transactions. So she's got a bunch of different transactions we're going to have to go through. What we are going to do is set up T accounts. So the first one here is going to be cash. Okay? The big to the far left. Right underneath it, it should be accounts receivable. Underneath that, supplies. Underneath that one, computers. Then, office equipment. Then, in the next column, up at the top, it should be accounts payable. Then we should have the next one, J. Lopez Capital. Here, I'm gonna put it on the screen. Don't fill in the numbers, guys. Just fill in the names, please. View, rotate view. Oops. There. Do you see what I want you to do? Just put in the account names. Am I doing it? P3. What? Cash? Computers? Oh, I'm sorry, guys. Do you have pencils or pens? Sorry. Here's more. Y'all want another one?
Let me take it, because I'm missing it.
Take both of them. Okay. I'm sorry, guys. I screwed up. I figured we'd go by the columns. We need to go by the rows here. The first portion here. Let's look at the first transaction. Contributed the following assets to the business. Cash, $5,700. Computers, $4,300. Office equipment, $3,600. So what we first need to do is record the transactions right into the T accounts using the transaction letter to identify each debit and each credit. So if we go to the 3 items she brought into the business, cash of $5,700, what are we going to do there? Instead of our date, we'll put A where our date should be, and cash should be, this transaction should show a debit to cash of $5,700. Computers, put A. The computers, you see how it's an A of $5,700 for cash, an A of $4,300 to computers, and an A of $3,600 to office equipment. Okay? Those are our debits. Our credit needs to equal our debits. So our $5,700 plus $4,300 plus $3,600 give us $13,600. Am I right? Okay. So if those are our debits, what is going to be our corresponding credit? What? This $13,600, because our debits need to equal our credits. In this example, we have 3 different debits because one was to cash, one was to computer, and one was to office equipment. But she's contributing all these into the business. So what would the credit be? Capital, J. Lopez Capital for $13,600. So what we would want to do is under A, we will credit $13,600. You see that right there? Again, in this one transaction, our debits need to equal our credits. We do have 3 debits, but that's okay. We need our credits to equal our debits. Okay? All of them go into J. Lopez Capital. Okay? Can I move on? Next, it says, found a location for her business and paid the first month's rent of $260. What do we know about that? Debit rent expense, so you'll put a B to rent expense, a debit there. Do you see down here, rent expense B is a debit, and we'll credit cash for $260. So you'll have in the credit section B 260, and rent expense will be a debit B 260. Guys, I got here late and I feel terrible about that, but I'm going to probably go till about 9:15. Please feel free to get up and leave. Okay? It's not your fault that I'm choosing to stay. I have lectures for all this. But I just don't want to cheat you out of time because of my issue. So just know you feel free to go, but I'm going to probably go over a little. Is that okay?
No.
Feel free to go. Everything will be on lectures. Okay? Next, C. Paid for advertisement announcing the opening of the school, $190. What do we think is going to happen here, guys? A credit for and a debit for what? Debit?
Advertising expense.
Awesome. Debit advertising expense. So you'll have a C here, and 190 is your debit. And cash, C, a credit of 190, isn't it? Okay? Tell me when I can go on. Well, Fred, I care about you, but I want to hear from all these other women. See ya. Anyone else? Go on, stay, stop, go on. Okay. You know I'm giving you a hard time, Fred.
You can give me as much hard time as you want.
Good. Okay. D, received applications from 3 students for a 4-week secretarial program and 2 students for a 10-day keyboarding course. The students will be billed a total of $1,300. Okay, this is tricky.
Will be, so nothing's happened.
And they received applications. So, I don't think we're going to do anything there, right? So D, nothing. E, purchase supplies on credit for $330. What does that sound like, guys? Debit supplies for it's E, 330, and accounts payable gets credited for 330. Okay? Next. Oh, I'm sorry. E, supplies is a debit. E, accounts payable is a credit. No. Next. F, billed the enrolled students $1,740.
Accounts payable. Or tuition revenue.
Tuition revenue, and when we bill monies we are going to receive, it is accounts receivable. Remember, Payables are when we pay the money. We owe it. Receivables are monies due us. So,
Tuition is a debit.
okay, revenues increase owner's equity. And if we increase owner's equity, what do? Credit revenues. And so F, tuition revenue, is a credit of $1,740. And accounts receivable, F, is a debit of $1,740. Okay? Yep, it's okay. You guys, today's a big day. There's a lot to learn. Next, G, purchased a second-hand computer for $480 and office equipment for $380 on credit. So we're going to have two debits here, aren't we? This is G, okay? Office equipment is G of $380 debit. Computers, G is a debit of $480. What are we going to credit? Accounts payable is a credit, G of $860. Do our debits equal our credits? Yes. See, we got G here.
I got that one on the computer.
Okay, and then office equipment is $380. And then accounts payable is a credit of $860. Okay? Next, H, paid for the supplies purchased on credit in E for $330. Okay, let's think about that. What did we show in E? What did we debit and what did we credit? I'm sorry. Supplies of $330. Accounts payable. So when we are paying that bill, we want to zero out that accounts payable, don't we? So if previously we credited that accounts payable for $330, what are we going to do to reduce that accounts payable? We'll debit that accounts payable for $330 and we'll credit our cash, H, for $330. Does that make sense? We don't owe it anymore. So we want to make sure we zero out that payable. Next, paid cash to repair a broken computer, $40. Cash and repair expense of $40. So we have I under cash is a credit of $40 because we're reducing our cash. Our repair expense, I, is a debit of $40. Expenses reduce our owner's equity. Since our owner's equity has a normal credit balance, reducing by expenses is a debit balance. So expenses have a normal debit balance. Next, received partial payment from students previously billed for $1,080. So where did we show they were initially billed? Accounts receivable and revenue. Now, from that accounts receivable, we received in cash $1,080. What are we going to do there?
So
Put it in the plus side.
we're gonna credit 1,080 in accounts receivable.
Perfect. We are going to reduce our accounts receivable by 1,080 because we've collected that money. We're not due 1,740 anymore, are we? We got 1,080, so we're going to credit our receivable for 1,080, and then we need to debit something.
The tuition.
What did we receive? Cash, didn't we? It's okay. We debit cash because we received cash. Cecile, remember the tuition transaction happened when we billed them.
Right.
We debited our accounts receivable and we credited the revenue, tuition revenue. This one is only about getting the money in. Okay? Guys, if it was easy, you wouldn't be here. Okay? If it was easy, I wouldn't have a job. So thank you for being here. Give yourself some leeway to say, I'm learning something new and it's a whole nother language. Next.
Utility bill.
Paid the utility bill for the current month of $90. What are we going to do there? You
debit your utilities and credit your cash.
There you go.
debit utility expense, credit your cash. Excellent. Next. Paid an assistant 1 week salary, $440.
Credit your cash.
Yes. Credit your cash, L440. And what will we debit?
Salaries.
Salaries expense, L440. Perfect. Down here? Perfect, guys. Next, made a cash withdrawal of $300.
Can you debit Lopez withdrawals?
Yes.
And then we would credit the cash.
Perfect. M, cash, credit of $300. M, J. Lopez withdrawals, a debit of $300. Excellent. Now, just to give you some time, under your cash, let's just look. You should have on the debit side an A of 5,700 and a J of 1,080. And that balance should be 6,780, or the total of the debits. Your credits should be B of 260, C of 190, H of 330, I of 40, K of 90, L of 440, and M of 300 for a total of 1,650. The balance should be a debit balance of 5,130. You guys have that?
Okay.
Next to the right, your accounts receivable should have an F of $1,740, and the credit is J of 1,080 for a balance of 660.
Why would you put the balance on numbers? Oh, because it's still credit.
Our debits and our credits, the difference is a debit balance. Next, computers should have a debit balance of 4,780. Our office equipment should have a balance of 3,980. Our accounts payable should have a credit balance after we debit 330 and our total credits are 1190, we should have a credit balance of 860. Okay? How are you guys doing so far? Now, let's go back. Next portion tells us we recorded the transactions in the T account. Now we need to prepare a trial balance. So we are going to do exactly what we did in the last problem. We're going to take that information, most important, or I shouldn't say most important, but important for you to start with the title. You'll have Lopez Office Training, Trial Balance, and you'll have today's date. Then you're going to take each of the accounts, beginning with assets, after assets, liabilities, after liabilities, the capital account, then the withdrawal account, J. Lopez withdrawal, then your revenue accounts, and then your expense accounts. That always is the order they need to go in.
That's what I was gonna ask you earlier when we first started this. It always will.
Always will. Assets always first, liabilities second, capital third, withdrawals fourth, revenues fifth, and expenses sixth. So what I'd like you to do is take the time and write in the account names. And then don't worry about filling in the numbers, but know that your bottom total should be $16,200 total debit and total credit. To see, do you get what I'm saying? Know what you need to have.
So on my homework, I put account R, we put accounts receivable. Like, you want me to write it all out?
I don't care, but what I don't want to do is give you bad habits for future or other instructors that would, you know, smack you. So I would encourage you to write it out. Sometimes I do, and it maybe isn't right. I sometimes do A/R
Yeah.
or A/P for accounts payable, but I want to teach you the decent form in this class. So it's not to be picky, it's just to keep you consistent.
Got it.
Okay? Now I will